Hey everybody, welcome back to Bridging the Gap. My name is Byron Nash, and this is...
Johnny Angel, Jack Hunt. Good to be with you again, brother.
Yeah, you too, buddy. How are things going?
Doing great, man. This is great. I'm so happy to be back in the saddle again and doing our thing and
back on the music train too.
Talking music, brother.
Yeah, but playing music too.
And
even
playing
more
music
too.
Yes.
So I was thinking, partly because of our guest today, about media and artists, and now that things are so different because we have social media. Back in the day, like, you really needed newspapers,
absolutely,
and news outlets and radio to kind of help an artist get exposure and get found out about. There's still that element there, but I think the tactics on how to do it are a little different now.
Yes.
So back in the day, how did you get well known outside of just playing? Like, did you deal with newspapers and magazines and stuff like that?
Well, I started as a paper boy, so yeah, it was like
That's kind of fun.
It is cool, man. But I remember the first time we were written about. I was in the Cordells, and Chuck Brinkman was introducing us for this concert we were doing, and the Pittsburgh Press was covering it, and they did a little article, and the picture came out, and all they did was talk about the Cordells and everything we did, and the only picture they used was Clark or Chuck Brinkman.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
To represent everybody.
But I still have that article, and when I was working a lot with the Vocal Group Hall of Fame and Museum.
Yeah.
We worked with a lot of the media, especially the newspapers, from Cleveland to Pittsburgh, and they play such a big role in getting the word out. And to me, that is still one of the main sources.
Oh yeah,
I love it
because they'll be able to reach people that you wouldn't be able to reach.
That's right.
That we won't as artists. And I've always I used to work in media. I don't know if you know that.
Right. Yeah.
And that's how I learned the music industry from the back end. Just kind of having a good understanding of. One, how, what does a good photo look like?
Yeah.
I've seen some pretty bad photos,
Yeah.
And then also having an understanding of deadlines and what do you need to present to the writers and to the magazines to make sure they have all the information, especially back when I was doing it, because the internet was around, but it wasn't as fluid as it is now, and so you had to be really thorough about it because you had to mail your package.
That's right.
And I just think I've never lost sight of that. Like, I think that way as an artist. I'm like, got to make sure I have photos, make sure I have content, make sure I have video, make sure I'm posting regularly. But also, like, I had a newspaper reach out asking me about the passing of Jeff Beck, just asking me what I thought about it. And I was like, wow, that's only because of how much I've had myself out there that they would even think to reach out, But
your point is well taken, because when I did my comeback show, the thing that hit me the best and the hardest was the articles that were written about our comeback.
That's great.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And people were reading it, and then of course putting it on
social media,
Facebook. Yes, you know what I mean. So it was kind of cool.
I still believe heavily in media, for sure. So speaking of other ways that I used to find out about music, was just rock magazines, And so this is what I've been thinking about. Well, I've been on a tear lately with guitar stuff. And I know this isn't a lot of people's bag, but I freaking love Ozzy Osbourne, especially the Randy Rhoads days. And the thing I love about this record, one, I got into it when I was like 15 years old, but Randy played classical. And that was sort of my first introduction to the mixing of rock and classical.
Yes.
To this day, I love classical music. I listen to it probably like 5 days a week.
Oh, wow.
And just the complexity of it all. But in a rock context, it helped me understand, one, acoustic music.
Sure.
You think rock and roll and metal, and it's like, but there's a lot of little interludes that are always like really beautiful and really soft, and that became a part of my playing. So right now I'm in this kind of
you're in that mode, man.
Yeah, I'm in guitar mode right now, so I'm like studying all the greats, and that's one of the records I'm on right now.
Hanging with you, we always got to talk about guitars. Why not drummers?
Hey, I love drums too.
So here's what I'm gonna do. Georgie Benson. Oh, he's not he's a guitar player. I thought I'd throw you a curveball.
Right?
Well, yes, especially because George Benson in the museum here. I have a lot of stuff from George when he was a youngster. George recorded when he was like 5 years old. You know what I mean?
I didn't know
and one of his first records, I still play on my show quite a bit, but he later became part of the Altiers, which is another great Pittsburgh group that they had 2 or 3 records out. Right?
Were they R&B, jazz?
R&B,
Okay.
no jazz,
No jazz.
all R&B. That's why whenever George Benson came out as this great jazz guitar player, we were like, what? And then we found out that people were saying like, George Benson singing? George Benson started singing. He was singing back when he was a kid, you know what I mean? It wasn't new, so that was kind of cool for me. And again, the guitar thing, I love guitars.
Yeah.
I had to throw that curve.
I do love drummers though. Maybe our next time we do some, we bring some of our favorite drum records.
There you go, we should do that.
I have some.
Okay.
I play a few. So our next guest is awesome guy. I've known him for quite some time. Scott Tady from the Beaver County Times. This guy, you want to talk about seeing concerts. I think he's at a concert probably 5 days a week. He interviews all different types of artists, and he really just has a really strong love and support for the local music scene, so we're really excited to get him on the show and talk to him today.
I can't wait to talk to him again. He's a great guy.
Yeah.
Worked with him before, and I'll tell you what, I know he's going to lay it on us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do. Stay tuned.
Jack in the Box.
Welcome to Jack in the Box. Today, let's reminisce a little bit about the Pittsburgh sound again. I'm talking about the Vogues. The Vogues. Ed Sullivan Show? The Vogues. Well, this is kind of cool because this is an album by them, of course, and it's autographed by all the Vogues, as well as this one called Memories, right? Nothing but memories. And there's memories of the Vogues. I love it. That is the jacket that Chuck Blasco wore. That is sheet music from their Please Mr. Sun. That is me, wearing a Vogues coat whenever we sat in with Chuck Blasco and the Vogues, right? And there's some more sheet music and just everything about the Vogues. There's some records in there too. Great, I love it. Nothing but Ginchy here, baby. Welcome back, and we are on the set right now with Scott Tady. Scott, welcome aboard, man.
Good to be here. Love this place. So much history here.
There's a lot of history here. A lot of history on this stage.
Yeah, right? It's a power trio right
I
here.
know, we should start a band.
But we've been talking a lot about the industry and about the effects that it has, but let's get to know you a little bit better before we get into that, right? Where'd you come from? What got you interested in doing this kind of thing,
I studied journalism at Duquesne University, and my dream all along was to be a music journalist. Right?
Is that right?
I would get the paper, my parents were getting when I was 13, 14. I couldn't wait to read the concert reviews from the night before.
Yes.
And it just dawned on me, wouldn't that be a great way to make a living? To get paid to go to So and then I started clipping the articles and kind of studying them, had a little scrapbook, and I'm sure that's how I started to learn how to write a music review. And it just followed me through career. I wrote for my high school newspaper. My first byline was an Aerosmith concert review in high school. I reviewed them in college. Reviewed them for the newspaper. I've interviewed all 5 members of Aerosmith individually.
Wow.
My work is done with
There
Aerosmith.
he is later.
What are you going to do next?
Right?
That's awesome.
But I just love it. The fact I can go to shows and write about them, and it really hits me how much feedback I get from people who love the same thing. They want to talk about music.
Yes.
There's like sports talk radio. People have talked about music. They want to shows they've seen. You get some old timers like us together and start talking about shows you've seen.
Yeah.
That's an hour conversation.
Yeah.
And
It's a book.
Right. And everyone's passionate about it. So I think people still like to read those articles, and sometimes they agree, sometimes they don't, but they just love the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you find that, I found this in my experience sometimes, that you become a fan of something that you didn't, of a group or artist, you go to the show, you're like, I got to cover the show, and then you're like, you leave like a super fan because, maybe you like them a little bit, maybe you heard of them, but then they really wow you, and then you become like a lifelong fan. Has that happened to you like a lot?
Oh, for sure. Even the first time I covered One Direction, the pop band from England, boy band, whatever, you could tell that Harry Styles guy, he was the one doing the most. He was the most interesting. So it didn't surprise me. Last year he came out with an album. I ranked as the second best album of 2022.
Oh, wow.
I mean, he's got songcraft, he's got charisma, good lyrics, good vocals. So if you'd have told me when I was seeing him at age 19 or whatever he was, never would have thought that. But like you said, you witness him in person, and you get a little spark. Oh, this guy's got something. So you learn.
Absolutely.
What was one of your favorite shows of 2022?
This was a surprise because I had a lot of punk, a lot of hardcore kind of stuff there. But I had the Billy Joel show #1. And I don't know if he came out and said, you know what, I have no new stuff. We're just doing old hits. The crowd went wild. And he did, but the band was very spirited that night, and his sense of humor was on par, and the sound, stadium shows, sometimes
absolutely.
The sound was right, it was perfect, the set list was impeccable, and it was just fun.
Yeah.
I just love being there. I'm not a stadium show fan, but that one I thought stood out above the rest.
Awesome.
Really did. Some of the smaller ones, there's bands like Idols. I saw there's a band out of Ireland called Fontaines DC. They were in Lawrenceville, a place called Spirit. There might be 200 people packed in a room. You could barely move, but it was just so exciting.
Yeah.
The band was on fire.
Awesome. So how long have you been professionally writing outside of the school newspaper?
1993 is when I started the Beaver County Times, but even before that, I worked for 2 years in Wheeling, West Virginia, newspaper there. They let me write a weekly column called "It's Only Rock and Roll." I called it.
I like that.
A little nod to the Rolling Stones, and so I guess since 1990. But I've been the entertainment guy since '97, and so I just celebrated 25 years last year.
Wow.
And I'm sure you're a former music journalist as well. It really hits you when now some of these artists are dying, right?
I know.
Lisa Marie Presley the other day, I dug up the interview I did with her in 2012, and it's jarring. You know, like Mac Miller, I did an interview with him, and we were talking at the time about he was kind of getting over some personal problems, addiction, and then you know what happens, and to go back and read some of those articles, it hits you.
And you're like a part of music history, because you're helping document music history.
Absolutely.
You know, I had some people that I interviewed. I'm like, wow, I talked to this guy, and I remember where they were, and I remember how I was, because as a writer, I was just a fan. You know, I think that's at the core of it. It's like I was like a little kid, just I get to talk to so and so. You know, and then that enthusiasm kind of translates in the way that you write. Actually, I find it's like he's still a fan.
I think they appreciate that too. They don't want you. You're just reading like robotically off a list of questions.
They can tell.
I try to start with something a little offbeat, just to kind of prove to them I listened to their most current album and kind of give them, hey, that one song. What are you talking about there? They light up.
Yeah, they open up too.
Yes,
you know,
very true.
You know, a lot of things that I relate to you, especially. People will say to me, "Oh, I heard about what's going on in Pittsburgh. What's going on in Pittsburgh?" And they don't realize that Beaver Valley is where most of that stuff came from. I mean, it must be the water, you know what I mean? But you think about all the groups that come out of there, and of course we all played in Pittsburgh, but they're still there. They're still doing big stuff, and you always covered it. You
were just talking to Billy Price. Some of his first albums were in New Brighton, the same place where Donny Harris recorded Ali. Joe Grishecki did albums there. Norm Nardini.
That's right.
Yeah, a lot of the Pittsburgh royalty did their albums up in Beaver County, and then worked the bar scene there. And, and B.E. Taylor,
Granati Brothers.
Yeah, they're still doing it. Close your eyes and point. You're pointing to some place where Granati Brothers playing right now.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right.
So speaking of like local artists and Pittsburgh royalty, what would be some advice you would give to newcomers coming up that even though we have the internet and we have these other vehicles to kind of get written about or get our word out there, if they were to approach and they were like, hey, we have this new thing, what's the best sort of like 5 tips you can give a new artist who hasn't really dealt with media and press yet?
You touched on it in the intro, and I love it. Photos are so important. And it's not just newspapers writing them, TV stations have websites, other people. I've seen so many bad photos. You tell a band that really gets people to pay attention. So it's worth the $75, $100 to pay someone to do that. I think that's very important. I think you can't just rely on Facebook. I think a lot of bands do. They don't even have their own website. Everything, because there's just so much on Facebook. You get lost in the shuffle. I think you need to have everything. You do need to be on Instagram. You do need TikTok. You do need, Facebook, of course. You need your own website. And even the old-fashioned thing, going out and meeting people and networking. If there's
that's huge.
Open mic or something like that, go to that. You might find your next guitarist.
That's right.
You got to work the circuit, I think. And,
no doubt about it.
Yeah.
So those are all important things.
That's great. That's great advice. And it's weird. Do you find that it's changed a little bit because of the internet? So do you think that, you said, well, you can't just put it on Facebook. Do you think that made some artists a little lazy? They're like, oh, I put a post on Facebook last week for a show.
Yes. It really
Interesting.
I also like to think about the bands that regret their name, like the band Orgy.
Yeah.
You can't even Google that now, or you can, but you got to, you browse the whole thing. So there are other bands the band Live from Central Pennsylvania, remember? Yeah. Then they had so many hits in the 90s.
Yeah.
How do you Google Live?
That's right.
So some bands just didn't work out. They didn't foresee the internet.
Yeah, the evolution of technology.
Because I've tried to look up Live, because I like some of their songs.
Yeah.
Can't do it.
Interesting. So, what you got a bunch of shows coming up?
I do. The next one is a band called, I'll see if you're into The Sacred Souls. You heard them yet? They're out of San Diego, a trio. It's like a doo-wop kind of early 60s R&B kind of thing. These are young guys, though. And you know, you look at them on their video and you think they're going to be punk. You think they're going to be, you know, they got a kind of rough, street look, but the voices come out. And it's really good. You're going to love it. Called The Sacred Souls.
I will look
They're
it
playing
up.
the Thunderbird in Lawrenceville, which is, of course, a great place to see a show.
Awesome.
So they're young guys.
Yeah. Yeah,
cool.
And I just did an interview with the dobro player for Green Sky Bluegrass.
Okay.
They're a bluegrass jam band. They like sold out Red Rocks 3 nights in a row, and really interesting band. They're kind of taking bluegrass in a little bit more of a jammy direction, kind of like David Brothers or Billy Strings, or. But sometimes, and you probably found this, I like the band. I've seen them before, but doing the interview, he got me excited.
Yeah.
I'm okay. I haven't seen these guys in 7-8 years. I got to get back out there because he was so enthused about the new music. So. Does
it ever get tiring having to do, your job of going to shows so much? Do you ever have a time like, oh man, I gotta cover this show?
There's a little part of me that looks forward to January when there aren't as many shows.
Slow down a little bit.
Yeah. And in the thick of summer, sometimes it gets a little bit hard. But I remember one time there was 5 shows in a row, and the last one was Nick Cave in Oakland. I was like, I don't know. I'm so beat, but I went, and it was like the best show I've seen in a decade. If you've ever seen Nick Cave, he's just intense. He's on top of people in the crowd, and I'm like, okay, I'm so glad I pushed through that one show.
Speaking of shows, do you have any opinions or thoughts about all the things that are happening with like ticket prices and sort of all the technical stuff that's been happening with how expensive things are? Because I mean, you've been going to concerts for a long time. I have ticket stubs where I paid $10 and it was $20 for an arena show. Now that is not the case. I know there's been a lot of tension with just the rising prices. What's your take on that?
It is an issue, and then Ticketmaster, the monopoly, is the issue. I don't know what, we've seen things like Ticketfly and some other websites come up, but it seems like Ticketmaster still has its hands on everything, and that's affecting the prices. And now they do the resales. Like I went to see a show at Red Rocks last year. I finally wanted to go out to the Colorado venue. The show sold out instantly. It was Robert Plant, Alison Krauss, but then people were reselling them, and that's legal to resell. Ticketmaster's getting a cut of that or whatever, or it might have been access for that. But anyway, Ticketmaster gets a cut of that, so people can resell them for far higher than the original price, right?
Yeah.
You may pay $90 to get a seat on the upper deck for Taylor Swift, but people are reselling them for $200, $340, and people are paying that.
Yeah.
I had a girl reach out to me, the band, the 1975, played in Moon Township recently.
Yeah.
And she's like, can you help me? If you see any ticket under like $300, let me know. And the initial sales price wasn't $300.
Yeah.
No.
So I wish there wasn't a monopoly. And one thing I try to tell people, don't forget, there are free shows. Heartwood Acres.
It's good music.
Yes.
Great music there.
That's right.
The Three Rivers Arts Festival, they have 10 days in a row of great bands.
Yeah.
So, and then sometimes the club shows. Go to Spirit in Lawrenceville, or go to a place like that. Maybe you're paying $30, but you're not getting gouged. So.
Yeah. So I feel like definitely the fans getting hit the most. But do you think the artists are taking a hit in a different way, where now they can't grow their fan base through live music because there's a lockdown on bots are buying up the first few rows and there's a resale game? Do you feel that they're taking a hit as well? Because they're not getting that same money off of that, right?
Yeah, they're not getting their fair share from that. I guess they're still making their money up front. Is the issue. And you have to tour now because there's no money in the album sales like it used to be, right?
That's right. That's the truth.
People are getting the music for free or basically free on Spotify or YouTube or Pandora or whatever. So bands got to tour. They're getting money, but you're right. They're not getting the fair share they should be. Yeah.
But something that's changed it, and I still can't grasp it, is that back in my day, when you would go cover a show, you didn't go to see one act.
Yeah.
You went to see 4 or 5, sometimes 10 acts for $250, $350, $5, not 100.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now you go to see one act and maybe an opener, and the one act and the ticket price is beyond where the average person can go. And so what gets me is music's meant to be shared. Music's meant to celebrate, and if you can't give it to the average person, only the elite can go see that, and that's what's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't like that at all. It's like, so I don't know how it came to that. I don't know why it's like that, but does it affect you in any way on how that works?
I think you see it in some of those shows where you said the ticket prices are so high. It's people that aren't even into the music as much, and I don't know how many shows I've been at General Mission where people were standing in front of the stage and just talking. The music's it's background music. They're having their beer. They'll take their one picture they can put on.
So they can say they were there.
Yeah.
That's about it.
And I'm like, I want to hear the song.
That's right.
But they're, it's not that the diehard people were getting priced out of it a little bit. It's an issue. And,
I agree.
And you mentioned that's one thing I liked about when Warped Tour was a thing. You would go to
So many bands.
You could see, you personally could see 20 bands in one day, and you'd be missing the other 30 that were playing.
Yeah,
There were 6 stages. I love that concept. Country music did that one year. Do you remember at Starlight? I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah.
And I saw some really good up-and-coming bands. I wish it would have caught on for country as well.
Yeah.
I don't know why it didn't. Probably because Nashville didn't want it to. But,
Yeah, true.
but yeah, I know what you mean about the old, you'd go see 5, 6 bands.
Yeah,
And, the second one may be the one you like the best.
Absolutely. And most of the concert posters I have in my museum are all 3, 4, 5, 10 acts. And it's like, it's crazy, you know? It's
Yeah.
Where can our followers follow you so they can hear about the concerts you're covering?
Oh, I appreciate that. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, but our website's timesonline.com. I do a monthly thing called My Favorite Guitar. We take a Pittsburgh area guitarist and we talk to them. Why we did it with you, of course, right here. Was that fun? We got to
Yeah, it was great. It was great.
pin you down and say, why is this your favorite guitar? People love it. So we do that. But yeah, I review concerts. I do interviews with some touring artists. So yeah, glad to help. Love Pittsburgh music. Love the sports scene.
So, real quick.
Go ahead.
You were going to go. You were ready.
I wanted to do some rapid fire with
Yeah,
you. See where his head is.
All right.
Right?
He's there. He's ready.
We do the segment called it's rapid fire, and we'll ask you 4 questions. Something
right.
old, something new, something treasured, something true.
All right.
And then first thing off your head, so something old.
I guess me, because next week will be my 35th anniversary as a newspaper.
Oh, that's great.
You know what?
Great.
That's
That's
I appreciate
good.
that because that's longevity.
You didn't
right
say
there.
old like just because you're old. You said
Yeah,
you've been doing something for a long time.
That's why I got to dye my hair.
Nice. Something new.
I just got engaged.
Oh, no.
Congrats.
My girlfriend, yes, I met her at the newspaper, and she used to review concerts for us as well. So
How about that?
sometimes we would fight over who gets the cover,
Oh, wow.
but it all worked out.
That's great. That's great.
I'm really happy.
Something treasured.
Treasured. I don't want to say something like my convertible, but I like my convertible.
I mean,
that seems
that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's old, it's beat up, but it's a
What
Buick.
convertible is it?
It's a Buick. It's Solera or whatever.
I love it.
Cascada. Buick Cascada, I should say.
Yeah.
But I just like the summertime, having the top down,
Yes.
cranking some music up, and
Sweet.
All right. Something true.
True. I do love this place. When I was walking around here before we got here, and I'm going down memory lane. I'm seeing pictures of B.E. Taylor back there. I'm
Yes,
seeing shows.
nice.
Oh, I remember that show at Three Rivers Stadium. I saw the Who there in '84. So I can't say enough about you having it. And I gave you some photos, didn't I?
Yes, you did. I still have a box full you gave
We
me.
cleaned out our library at the newspaper. We had some
Yep.
old black and white photos. So what am I going to do with these? I know a guy who wants them. So
And some of them are actually in there now.
Excellent.
I take a picture that I had something from them, and I went, "This is really cool." And it's a picture that came through you. And
Oh,
it's
wow. That's great.
I appreciate what you're doing. I mean, Pittsburgh music has such a great history, and this is just an encapsulation of it right here.
Thank you so
Well,
much.
thank you so much for being on the show, but even more so, thank you for what you do for the local music scene and for music in general, because I think, there's certain people that are on the front line that kind of help keep it alive, and you've been one of those people for a long time, so thank you for that.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
You keep up the great work. You too.
Thanks,
All right,
Scott.
thank
We
you.
appreciate you, brother.
All right, guys, stay tuned for the next episode of Bridging the Gap. See you soon. Hey, welcome back to Byron's Bodega, everybody. I freaking love this book. If you know anything about me and merch and gear, I pretty much wear rock and roll t-shirts 99% of the time. This book is called Rock and Roll Tees, and what it is the history of the rock and roll t-shirt. So it kind of starts in the late 60s, early 70s, shows you the ink, the progression of design, remember the half quarter sleeve type of things in the 70s, things like that. And then as it progressed, how like the designs, how the ink, how the fabric, all of that changed. So this book is really interesting because it's so close to me because I actually rock this fashion. I love books, but I really love books about music history. Even though it's not about music, it is about the music merch, and this book is incredible if you want to learn about rock t-shirts.
Pretty good turnout for the Turnstile Show at Stage AE. One of the top 5 shows of the year. 90s alt-rock icons, the Smashing Pumpkins played Pittsburgh Saturday. And while co-headliners Jane's Addiction canceled due to an unspecified injury, fans saw a great show. Here are some highlights.